Chex Quest HD looked a little underwhelming to me, but I decided to give it a try anyway. It had a surprisingly half-hour long download time, giving me a sense it had more content than I expected. What I didn't expect, however, was American cereal propaganda. I'm familiar with the name Chex Mix, though I've never eaten it myself, but it turns out this game is a trademarked remake of a 1996 FPS made to advertise the Chex line. For anyone who doesn't know what Chex Mix is, it's a type of savoury snack, but has elements of the Chex cereal in it, which is confusing since I thought it was cereal, but it lives in a packet that looks like a bag of crisps, or chips if you're American. It doesn't really say what the cereal is made of, but there are also rye chips, bagel chips, breadsticks, pretzels, nuts and crackers in there. I've never tried it, so I don't know if it's good. There are loads of flavours, but this isn't an advert, so you can go and Google it yourself. Either way, I didn't realise this was what it was for. I didn't read the Steam page too hard, and I didn't know enough about it to recognise the mascots, so the Chex Mix logos everywhere were a little jarring. I knew KFC did it with I Love You Colonel Sanders, but I didn't know Chex did it too. KFC's game is still weirder though. This, like the original, is an FPS. You play as one of 6 of the Chex mascots on a journey to a planet to free whichever 5 of your crew you didn't choose to play as, and you do this by navigating levels and shooting enemies with a laser that warps them back to the dimension they came from. The original was of course a non-violent first-person shooter game, despite being inspired by Doom. It has to specify that, and it was aimed at kids from 6 to 9. Don't judge me. You collect keys to unlock further areas whilst trying to not kill, all the enemies along the way. There are secrets you can find in the levels consisting of power-ups and messages on TVs, and there are items you can pick up as well. Each of the 5 levels has a counter when you hover over to show you how many of what there is in the level, and if you want replayability, that's where it'll come from, in finding any secrets and items that you couldn't find the first time. You pick up varying powers of weapon through the levels, with your strongest being a laser gun type thing, and your weakest being a spoon that you can thrust mildly at enemies, and yet somehow has the same power to teleport them that a specifically made laser gun does. Just don't question it. Some of the weapons are quite useless, like the rapid-fire one, which sounds well and good, but the shots are so much weaker that it takes triple the ammo and amount of hits to teleport them than it does with some others. You get a big rocket blaster type gun, which is very overpowered and can teleport multiple higher level enemies at once with one hit. And there's a shotgun style one. It doesn't look like a shotgun, but the power functions like a shotgun in that it's slow shots but very powerful. Each type has its own ammo for you to manage and pick up in the levels, and you can also pick up slime repellent, which acts as a shield, but you only get 1% shield per pickup, so it's not something to rely on. You can pick up armour, which gives you up to 200% shielding. Don't ask me why it goes over 100, they could have just changed the proportions, but screw maths, I guess. And you can also pick up extra health, which is 1% per pickup as well. What I said before about the guns being really good is great in theory, but you do have the problem of the game never wanting to give you a decent amount of ammo for the actually good weapons, meaning you have to switch to weaker ones and manage it well. The enemy types change from basic to buff, to one-eyed and flying, to buff with shoulder-mounted cannons. Definitely seeing that Doom inspiration. The stronger they are, the more hits they take to not kill, and you have to use stronger weapons to do so. I didn't find it too hard, to be fair. The enemies were pretty slow to attack you, other than the shoulder cannon guys, but there were never too many, and other than a couple of times where you had not much room to manoeuvre, it was fairly easy to tackle them. The 5th level in the caverns got quite difficult due to an increase in enemies, a decrease in ammo for actual good weapons, and severe restriction on places you can run and hide to. The voice acting is good, the environments are very simple and blocky, as are the enemies, which I think may be an attempt to link to the original version. Perhaps they didn't want to go too modern for a remake and wanted to keep the nostalgia. There were a few buggy, jarry enemies at times, but the game is pretty sturdy and has animated cutscenes as well. If you die right near the end of the level, you have to do the whole thing again. Luckily, they aren't too confusing to navigate. If you have 3 coloured doors in the same area, the game will run you in a circle back to that area so you have easy access to the next door once you get the key, and you don't have to backtrack. In some places there are teleports as well to make it even easier. The voice acting was shown a bit better in the intro to the co-op mode. Yes, there is a co-op mode that you can play alone, which I did, and it turns out to be a training simulator on a CD the main character pulls out of his nose. Don't question that either. This mode is a survival mode where you get an ammo boost and a ton of ammo drops, armour, and you have to survive as many waves of enemies as you can. It starts simple, and slowly the enemy waves increase in size and difficulty. As you complete a few waves, you unlock coloured keys to closed off areas like you get in the single player mode, and new enemies will spawn in those areas once you've unlocked them. At first the waves come steady, but once you've opened all the areas, being a factory, arboretum, which are callbacks to the main game levels, and what looks like a museum of the game objects and assets and some callbacks to the original game, the waves start coming thick and fast. As an example, the game initiated 2 waves of enemies in a few seconds, and there was so much spawning that it was ridiculous. I found out that if you stand on top of the spaceship in the main area, the enemies can't reach you unless it's the flying ones, but this gimmick didn't fully work, and it got to the point where I had to run away to get some more ammo, and an entire army was waiting for me. It actually became both hilarious and terrifying that everywhere I tried to run, the doorway was jammed with enemies, because too many spawned inside each other and got stuck. I had a massive swarm coming at me like some zombie movie. Every time I teleported one, it didn't seem to make a dent. And I was running around the halls dying for ammo and shields and kept running into clusters of spawned enemies that were stuck. The waves started coming and they didn't stop coming, and eventually I got overwhelmed. This mode brought in a new variation of the normal enemies that were purple and more tanky for a bit of added challenge, but with the sheer volume of them I really didn't need much more of a challenge. It's fun, but it gets really damn hard once the waves start coming indiscriminately. I'm not sure if that was the intentional pace, but damn, it got rough. I couldn't load versus mode because presumably I needed someone to fight, so I can't make any comments on that bit. All in all, this game took me for surprise a bit. It's graphically very simple, and mechanically too. Some weapons are frustrating to use, and ammo isn't plentiful enough for a comfortable game, but that adds the challenge in, and even for a kid's game, it's not something you can palm off as being super easy. For the most part. The challenge doesn't really kick in until a couple of levels in, but it does at least pose some. I believe the outdated looking graphics are a callback to the original since it's a HD remaster, so the game story and levels are probably identical, but everything will likely be a bit more colourful and smoother than normal. If you can call it smooth. It's easy to pick up, it should be, being a kid's game. It's sturdy, so there's no worry about bugs or glitches. Your enemies aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, taking several hits in the back sometimes before acknowledging you, and they can be a tad jittery on occasion, but never really broken. It's got pretty decent playtime of about an hour for the main campaign, and I got another half an hour roughly on the co-op mode as well. I can't compare it to the original since I never played it, but the game on its own is decent, though nothing too special. So I'll give Chex Quest HD a 7.5 out of 10.